This is Gemara in Gittin and Daf Samach Vav, and we hold on the bottom of Samach Hey Amid Beis at the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom. We learned in the Mishnah that originally they learned that one who was going out to Bekoilar in chains to be executed, and he said, Kisvu get to Lishti, write a get for my wife, they would write it and they would give it. Chazru va'amru, but then the Chachamim later said, not only in that case, even someone who's traveling overseas, and Rosh Shizuri says, Af ha'misukan. So says the Gemara, how we could take this din in the Mishnah of Yoitze Bekolar, of going out in chains, and apply it and learn how it's relevant as well to other halachas, particularly matana. Says the Gemara, Giniva Yoitze Bekolar. Geniva was going out in chains. Geniva was his name. Have. Ki have kanafik. V'amar, as he was going out, he said, Havu arba me'azuzi le Rabavina. He said, give 400 zuz to Rabavina. Mei chamra de nahar panya. From my wine that is in nahar panya. So we have a case. The Mishnah dealt with what happens. Someone's Yaitze B'Koilar, someone going out with chains, and says to write a get with his wife. Now the Gemara quotes a case of someone going out with chains, and he says to give a matana, to give X amount, 400 zuz, from the wine in a certain place to Rav Avina. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Zira, says Rav Zira, as we turn over to Samach Vav Amud Aleph, says Rav Zira, Tara, Rav Avina lisalta, let Rav Avina carry his basket on his shoulders, V'azo legabe to Ravuna Rabbi, and go in front of Ravuna his Rabbi, and he's going to say that it's going to be good. To Amar Ravuna, as Ravuna taught, Gittin kim matanasai. A get is like a matana. Ma matanasai, just like in the case of a matana. 3 lines from the top. Imam ad chayzer. Af gittin imam ad chayzer. But also in the reverse. Uma gittin afal gav deloi pirish. So too in the case of a get, even though he didn't specify to give it, he just said kisvu. He just said write a get from my wife. And yet we learned to the Mishnah the halacha is you don't only write it, you also give the get. So too says Ravuna damar kisvu avagav lomar tinu, that saying write even without saying give is enough. Af matanasa, so to the case of matana, kivan da amar tinu avagav deloy kanu minei, it's still going to work. So paskins the Gemara. Says Ravina that, says Rav Zera, that Rav Avina should carry a basket on his shoulders and he could go take all this stuff, as Ravuna is going to baskin that the din of a matana is going to be the same din as a get. Asks the Gemara, 8 lines down, first one line is maskif la Rav Abba. Ima matana, ask Rav Abba, 1 second. Just like when it comes to matana, Yeshana lachar misa. A matana could take effect after one dies. Afgita yeshna lachar misa. Says the Gemara, the equation doesn't work. What was the equation? That get is like matana, matana is like get. Says the Gemara, it's not true. Answers the Gemara, hachi ashta, 1 second. Bishlama matana, isa lachar misa. It's true, a matana is lachar misa. Elagel lachar misa mi'ika. Says the Gemara, you're right in din perhaps, but there's a reason why this is true. Because when it comes to get, it's an impossibility for there to be a gerushin after death. However, if it were to have been possible, whatever is possible, get and matan is comparable. So don't ask me from Lachar Misa because the person is no longer around. But while the person is alive, with regard to dinim that are comparable, that we will say are the same. So suggests the Gemara that yes, a get will be, a matan will be just like a get, and in this case will be transferred. Elo Rav Abba Hachika Kashli. Says Rav Abba, no, this is what we're asking. Mandash chimera b'miksasi. Matnas Chivra could apply even b'mixas on part of his properties. Umatnas Chivra b'mixas ba'i kinyin. But a matnas chivra, when it's only in part, requires a kinyan. So in this case, even if you're going to tell me it has the din of a matnas chivra, it still still require a kinyan. So why in this case did Rav Zeir say go and take it without even a kinyan? Says the Gemara, Mechlal, Rav Huna Savar, loy by a kinyan. Are you telling me that Rav Huna holds it does not need a kinyan? V'kaimalon. To buy a kinyan, it needs a kinyan. So says the Gemara, no, there's a different mechanics at hand over here. Says the Gemara, shiny hacha de mitzvahs de mitzuveh de mitzaveh machmas misahu. That Geniva was saying to do this because of the fact that he's about to be killed. So in that case, even b'mixas is going to work. Even though generally a matnas chivra is going to, yes, need a kinyan, but over here it's going to be at some level even better. Says the Gemara, Mechlal de Rav Abba Savar, Mitzvah Machmas Misa by a kinyan. He's arguing on this din. He's holding that when there is a tzivoy, there's a commandment due to the impending death, you're going to need a kinyan. V'kai malan, but we hold to lo by a kinyan. El Rav Abba achika kashle. Says Rav Abba, okay, let's get to the bottom of this. Chamra loika amar. Demei chamra loika amra. Mei chamra ka amar. Says Rav Abba, you know what the problem here is? The problem is he didn't say to give him wine worth 400 zuz. He didn't say to give him the demei chamra worth 400 zuz. Rather, what did he say? Mei chamra, give 400 zuz from the wine, which is ridiculous. There's no 400 zuz inside the wine. That's the reason that Rav Abba is arguing. So it's a very technical detail. It's not Yisodi. It's not that Rav Abba is holding there's a problem in the actual way of giving over the gift. No, there's a technical problem that what the guy said is ridiculous. He said take $400 out of the barrel of wine. There's no $400 in a barrel of wine. Ve'edach. So what does Rav Huna hold? Says the Gemara, Mechamra. You know what he meant? All he meant was to give him an extra yipoy kaicha, an extra strengthening, to say that he could take from anywhere within the wine to pay it back. Shalchu mitam, says the Gemara, they sent from Eretz Yisrael. Mechamra k'dei liyapoy says chai. Don't translate his words literally and say the fact that he said take 400 zuz from the wine is meaningless, but rather it just increases kayach that he could collect from anywhere within the wine, and thereby that is the reason why Rav Huna is holding there is indeed an acquisition, there is indeed a giving over of the wine as this person, the Geniva, was being led out to his death. Continues the Mishnah in a similar vein. Someone is thrown into a pit. Vamar, and he screams out, whoever hears his voice, ready to get to his wife. What's the halacha? Similar to the previous Mishnah. The halacha is write and give a get. Says the Gemara, so 1 second. We just said a guy in the pit screams out, anyone who hears me should write and give a get to my wife. We do that. Says the Gemara, why aren't we worried that maybe it's a shade, maybe it's a demon that's talking, and it's not the person himself? Amar Rav Yehuda, Adam, because he saw that there's a form of a person there. Says the Gemara, that the person as well, Shadim as well, could appear like people. The answer is you saw it in a mirror, you saw it in a shadow, and Shadim have no shadow. Says, but 1 second, they also do. The shadow of the shadow. Says the Gemara, maybe Shadim have shadows of shadows as well. Amar Rav Chanina, Limanu Yoinisan Bini, Yoinisan my son taught me, Bebaya Islu. Shadim have a shadow, Bebaya de Bebaya, Laslahu, they do not have shadows of shadows. Says the Gemara, but 1 second. The Dilma Tsarihi, maybe it was a co-wife at the bottom of the pit, and it wasn't the husband. Maybe this person, the co-wife, is posing as the husband because she wants to get rid of this other wife. Says the Gemara, Tanvei Yishmael b'shas sakana. We learned in Bidvei Yishmael in times of sakana. Koisu noisin afal pi shein makirin. This is a chiddush that even if we don't see the person in front of us, still kaisvin, so we write v'noisnin and we give the get. So too in this case, even though we don't see the person 100%, and there are maybe perhaps a 1% chash, we don't know if it's really this guy, but still we will write and give the get. We continue with the Mishnah. This is the second Mishnah on the Amud. Apologies that our video has conked out for the moment. Says the Mishnah, a healthy person says, right again for my wife, he intends just to play games with her, to taunt her. And what happened? He went up to the roof, he fell and he died. Amar Rashbag, get. Fell on his own, that we assume this was a get. But if the wind pushed him off, no get, then this is not a get. So says the Gemara, in this case, he did not actually give the get, or that's actually the question. We learned in the previous Mishnah, when one says, Kisfu, get leishti, there are certain scenarios in which we indeed write and give it. Says the Gemara, in the scenario that he goes up to the roof and he falls to his death, do we assume that the sci-fi, the end of the story, as Rashi speaks it out, proves that in the beginning he wanted this to happen, and then it's like a case of a misukon, it's like a case on their deathbed. So says the Gemara, Maisa Listar, what's going on over here? As we just said, the story seems to prove not that way. We said that what? You don't give the get, and the story says maybe yeah. Says the Gemara, classically, there's some missing words. If the end of the story proves the beginning, then harez a get, and there's a sheet that holds that it is a get. And we have a story with healthy person, v'nafal umeis v'amar Rashbag imeatz my nafal or is again in maruch chasai a noi get. So answered the Gemara a few words, and now the Mishnah makes a lot of sense. Continues the Gemara, Gavra. There was a guy, we're about 10 lines to the bottom. First one on line is a noi get. How Gavra told the bacon ish. There was a man that went up to shul. He found a rabbi that was sitting and teaching the kids. And there was another person sitting with them. Amar lahu, the man said to them, two of you, please write a get for my wife. Eventually, the Makri Yanuka, the Rebbe, was nifter before the get was completed. Says the Gemara, Mi mashi inish abra shlicha b'makem abba oiloi. Do people appoint a child to do something in the place of his father or not? And the question being is that this situation, that two of the three people, when he said to write the get, he wasn't particular who those people were. So now the Gemara wants to know, now that the father is no longer, the kid and the third person should be able to write and give the get. Is that accurate or not? Says the Gemara, Rav Nachman Amar, Loi mashinish bar shlichim ha'gamaba. Rav Papi Amar, mashinish shlichim ha'gamaba. And Amar Rava, Hilchza mashinish bar shlicha b'makom abba. One could indeed and does indeed appoint a child to be the shliach even when his father is there. And therefore, in a scenario like this one, the child after the Rebbe's death would be able to write and give the get on behalf of this person. And we continue with the final line on Samach Vav Amud Aleph, the Mishnah. Now we have a case in which he didn't say kisvu, he didn't say right. In this case, he said a little bit differently. What did he say? Tenu galishti, give a get to my wife, as we turn over to Samach Vav Amud Beis. Or he told three people, kisvu get utenu lishti, right, and give a get to my wife. What's the halacha? They should write it and they should give it on his behalf, fulfilling the words that he says. Amar l'shleisha tenu get l'ishti. If he tells 3 people to give a get to his wife, so then he's appointing a bezdin at some level. So they should tell someone else, and they should write the get. By telling 3 people, you're making these 3 people into a bezdin, says Rameir. This was the halacha the Rav Chanina Ish Aynai brought back from jail. Mekubalani, he said, I have a Kabbalah. When someone says to 3 people, give a get to my wife, this is an appointing of bezdin of sorts, and therefore those people should hire 2 people to write the get for this man. Amar Rav Yosi says, Rav Yosi, Numinu Shlishliach. We send the messenger. Af anu mekablim. We also have a kabbalah. Shavilu amar lebezdin agadol shebi Yerushalayim. Even if he told the greatest bezdin to nugel ishti she'elimdu v'yichtov yitnu, that they, what should they do? They themselves have to learn how to write, and they themselves will be yitnu, will give the get. Amar la'asara. But now, what happens if someone tells 10 people? Kisvu to nugel, write and give a get for my wife. Echad kaisei. If one writes it, shnei chaisman, and 2 sign it. Kolchem kasufu, but let's say he says you all should write it. Then echad kaisei v'kulam chaismin. One writes, they all sign the fikach. And meisachamim, if one of them dies, I raise a get bottle. Then the get's going to be bottle, because the fact that he said kulchem, you all have to do it. That simply means that if one of them is lacking, there's no more get. So says the Gemara. Let's delve a bit deeper into this Mishnah. Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, says Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Shalchu le'mi Rav Yishmael. The yeshiva Rav Yishmael sent the following Shaila Shalchu le'mi bei Rav Lishmuel. Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu. You have taught us. Amr l'shnein kisu tenuga l'ishti. If you tell 2 people, ve'amru le'sayfer, then 2 people tell the scribe v'kosav, and he writes it v'chasmu hein, and they themselves sign it. Ma'u, what is the halacha? Do they themselves? Does the Mishnah only require that they sign the get, or do they actually have to write the get? So when we tell 2 people, do those 2 people have to be the ones to write it, or is it enough if they just sign the document? Ma'u, what is the halacha? Shalach le Shmuel answered, Teitzev adavar tzarich tamud. She has to leave. They're not allowed to stay married, but we have to delve a bit deeper into what's going on over here. So says the Gemara, what did Shmuel mean? Maya davar tzarich talmud. What did Shmuel mean that we have to look a little bit deeper into this story? If the reason is because it's words that he told the 2 people to write and give a get. Umisavkele, and Shmuel wasn't sure. Mili imimsar and lishliach, Eloi imimsar and lishliach. Do you give over words to a shliach or not? But how could that be his concern? We already know that Shmuel paskins, like Rav Yosi, that Mili are not given over to shliach. So Shmuel knew what the halach is in such a case. So what exactly was Shmuel's shayla that he said we have to delve a bit deeper? Shmuel, you know what Shmuel's shayla was as follows. If when he says kasayvu, when he said to write the get, did he mean kasayvu ksav yadan? Did he mean referring to their signatures? Who? Oy ksava getu? Or did he mean to tell them that they have to actually write the get? What did the husband mean when he told the 2 people, kaisvu utunu gel ishti, write and give a get for my wife? Did he mean that they should be the one to sign it? Or did he mean that they have to actually write it as well? So says the Gemara, why don't we answer it? Excuse me, we skipped a little bit over here. Let's bring a raya from our Mishnah. Omar lishnayim, if someone says to 2 people, Tenu galishti, oy lishlaisha, or he says to 3 people, Kisu get tenu lishti, write and give a get to my wife, hareilu, what's the halacha, yichtuv yitnu? They themselves should write and give it. So what do we see? We see that clearly he means that they should write it themselves, like the Mishnah says. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? Hagufa kasha, hagufa coming by. This is the exact same words of the Brisa as our Mishnah. And this is a kasha. Kisayvu, when he says, excuse me, right? Ksav Yodanu or Ksav Agedu. What does he mean? So says the Gemara about 25 lines to the bottom. First word line is Pshita. Pshita. The following is Pashit. Tiksav Agedu. That the text of the get, that they have to write. The Katani Seifa, what did the end of the Mishnah say? Am Rav Yaisi, Na'man l'shliach, avanu mekublin. We said to the shliach that we as well have a kabbalah shavilu amar lebezin hakodesh b'Yerushalayim to get leishti sheyilmedu v'yichtu v'yitnu la. They have to teach themselves and they have to write and give it. So says the Gemara, Amir b'Shlam, if you're going to tell me that what this means is ksava gedu, that when he says write, what does he mean? Write the actual get? Then everything makes a lot of sense. But if we meant that they have to sign it, could it be that these dayanim don't even know how to sign their name? Very simple proof. The Mishnah said if he tells the Bezdin Gadol, he tells them kisvu to know. What did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said that they have to learn how to write and write and give the get. So says the Gemara, clearly, what did he mean? Clearly, he meant to write the actual text of the get. Why is that very clear? That's very clear because it couldn't have just meant that they should write their signatures. Because then what would the Mishnah have meant? That they have to go learn how to write their signatures? What? Does anyone not know how to write their signature? Answers the Gemara, and with this we conclude yeah, it's true. People might not even know how to write their signatures. Ika beidina chadati. It's a new bezdin, and they do not know how to sign. And that's what the Mishnah meant, that they should learn how to sign. We're going to stop over here, and we'll pick it up from here in the next year of Siyata Dishmaya.